312 small shadows stood behind a door that had not opened. The transport's ramp sat locked at a 40-degree angle, hydraulics ticking as they cooled in the afternoon sun. Wheat swayed gold and waist-high on both sides of the landing strip, the kind of field that hadn't seen anything stranger than a crop duster in 80 years. Now it held 4 warships worth of silence. One shadow, smaller than the rest, still gripped half a sandwich. The bread had gone soft in the heat. No one had told her to eat before they let her go. No one had told her much of anything for 3 years and 1 week. 200 miles away, under granite and 6 layers of denial, Admiral Yuki Chen watched the feed on a screen the size of her palm. She had not touched her collar in 11 minutes. For a woman who touched it before every hard decision, that was its own kind of scream. No cheering, no countdown, no music to make it feel like the movies. Just whined through wheat and a ramp that hadn't moved in 4 minutes and 311 other children standing in a silence with weight to it. Then the ramp groaned. You'll hear that ramp finish opening. I promise you it does. 61 hours earlier, on a duty desk under Lunar Array, an ensign named Priya Ose set her coffee down. She did not pick it up again. The transmission had arrived flagged priority red, the kind of flag that existed on paper and had never once, in her 4 years at the console, actually lit up. It lit up now. She opened the file the way you'd open a door you already suspected had something dead behind it. 47 seconds. No words at first, just the sound of children screaming, layered thick enough that no single voice could be picked from the rest. Then silence, clean as a blade. Then a voice that did not belong to any human throat. We have taken your young. Consider this a demonstration of your place in the order of things. Do not respond. Do not pursue. You are guests in our galaxy. Guests do not expand. Osai did not scream. She did not cry. She hit the relay that woke the Secretary General at 4 in the morning, and she sat with her hand flat on the desk until it stopped shaking. The Secretary General listened to the full 47 seconds twice, standing in a bathrobe in a room that still smelled of the coffee no one had brought him yet. When it ended the second time, he asked one question. Who are they? The VTH Dominion, sir, said the aide who'd brought the file. 43 systems, 6,000 years. We've traded with their outer colonies twice and been told, both times, not to come back. The Secretary General was quiet long enough that the aide thought the connection had dropped. Wake the quiet team, he said finally. All of it, and get me Admiral Chen. Chen was already awake. She'd been awake, in one sense, for 11 years. The call came through on a line that officially did not exist, on a ship that 17 treaties swore was never built. The UEES Akaran sat dark and silent 40,000 kilometers past any charted patrol route, air-gapped from every network humanity had ever strung between the stars. Chen took the call in her quarters, standing, because she did not sit for calls like this. She listened to the transmission once. She touched her collar. Then she walked to the bridge without waiting to be asked. General Marcus Webb met her at the hatch, jaw tight enough to crack walnuts. 312 kids, Admiral, Perseverance Colony, Kepler Corridor, ages 4 to 17. Taken clean, no casualties, no resistance offered because there was nothing to resist. One ship in, out, gone in under 6 minutes. Casualties among the colony adults. None. They didn't want hostages who could fight back. They wanted the ones who couldn't. Colonel Diane Park fell into step on Chen's other side. Already scrolling data across a slate she hadn't looked up from in what Chen guessed was several hours. Their fleet posture hasn't changed. No mobilization, no reinforcement of the corridor. They took the children and went home like it was Tuesday. Because to them, Chen said, it is Tuesday. This is a species that's done this 11 times before us. 4 of those 11 don't exist anymore. The bridge of the Akaran held no viewscreen showing stars, no dramatic countdown clock, just 11 workstations and a long table nobody had eaten a meal at in over a decade. Dr. Amara Vasquez stood at the far end of it, small, unranked, and terrifying in the particular way of someone who has spent 11 years being right about something nobody wanted to hear. She touched her tablet screen twice before she spoke. It was a habit left over from 11 years of code reviews, the kind of tick that meant something enormous was about to leave her mouth in a very small voice. "It's ready," she said. "It's been ready for 2 years. We just never had a reason to use it." "Now we have 312, Chen said. Webb looked between them. "Somebody want to tell the man with the actual guns what we're talking about?" Chen finally sat. She folded her hands on the table, and for the first time since the call woke her, she looked almost calm, the specific calm of a woman setting down a weight she'd been carrying so long her arms had forgotten it was there. "The VTH Dominion runs their entire fleet on something called the VET Continuum," she said. 43 systems, over 4,000 vessels, every navigation core talking to every other navigation core in something close to real time. It's not a network the way we'd build one. It's closer to a nervous system. "And," Webb said, "we've spent 11 years learning to read it," Vasquez said quietly. "We've spent the last 2 learning to write in it." Nobody at the table said anything for a moment. Somewhere below decks, a bulkhead ticked as the ship systems cycled, the only sound in a room that suddenly felt much smaller than it was. "We don't send warships," Chen said. "We're going to send something worse." Park looked up from her slate for the first time since Chen had entered. "How worse?" Chen didn't answer right away. She touched her collar once, precisely, the way she always did before the part that couldn't be undone. "Get me a channel to the VTH Prime relay," she said. "I want to be looking at their Grand Commander's face in 4 hours, and somebody bring Dr. Vasquez a chair. She's going to need it before this is over." Webb didn't move. 4 hours to do what, exactly? To let 4,217 ships find out they've been carrying a passenger, Chen said, that none of them ever agreed to. Webb didn't move for a full 3 seconds. Then he moved fast. The transmission window took 4 hours to build and 11 seconds to send. Chen spent most of those hours in a chair she didn't sit still in, going over the same 3 sentences Vasquez had written for her, the way a surgeon checks a blade she's already sharpened. 43 light-years away, in a chamber carved from black stone that had outlasted 11 conquered species, Grand Commander Seathrakva of the VTH Dominion sat at the head of a table shaped like a closed fist. He did not fidget. He had not fidgeted in 300 years of command. His 3-fingered hands rested flat on the stone, joints glowing faint blue beneath armored plating, and the ceremonial blade at his hip, forged from the hull of his first command, never once drawn in anger, caught the low light without moving an inch. 42 other commanders filled the hall of unbroken victory around him, beneath banners taken from 11 species who no longer had a say in anything. 4 of those species no longer existed at all. Seathrakva had personally overseen 2 of the 4 endings. "The message was received," said a commander near the far wall, one of the younger ones, still eager enough to state the obvious out loud. "The humans have made no response." "They will respond with grief," Seathrakva said, "or they will respond with rage. Both are useful. Both tell us exactly how far they are from understanding their place." He did not know yet that humanity intended to respond with neither. The lights went out first. Not dimmed, not flickered. Gone, all at once, across the entire hall, followed by the low mechanical whine of a backup system trying and failing to engage. 43 commanders sat in a blackness so complete that several of them, for the first time in centuries, reached instinctively for weapons that would do nothing against a darkness that wasn't a person. Seathrakva did not reach for anything. He simply asked into the black, "Report." No one answered, because no one had an answer yet. Then the personal display units flickered on, one by one, every screen in the hall lighting at once with the same face. A woman, human, silver hair pulled back with a precision that looked almost military in its restraint. She did not smile. She did not raise her voice. I'm going to speak, Admiral Chen said, and you're going to listen. It'll go faster that way. Somewhere 300 kilometers from that room, in an office with no windows, Dr. Vasquez touched her tablet screen twice and did not look up from it again. Your ship's accepted a navigation update 6 hours ago, Chen continued. It came through your own protocols, on your own authenticated channels, the same way every update has for the last 2 years. It came from inside the house. Every vessel in your fleet larger than a scout craft is currently carrying a package it did not know it was carrying. A commander 3 seats down from Sithrakva made a sound that wasn't quite words. Sithrakva raised one hand, and the sound stopped. How many ships? Sithrakva said. It was not a question shaped like a question. It was a demand for the size of the wound. 4,217, Chen said. If we activate what's already sitting dormant in their cores, every one of them receives new navigational instructions faster than any counter-command your fleet computers can issue. You will go where we send you, not where you choose, where we choose. The hall did not make a sound. Somewhere in the dark, beyond the screens, a junior commander's chair scraped once against stone and then went still, as if the man sitting in it had forgotten how to finish the motion. You have taken 312 children, Chen said. You will return them within 72 hours. When they're home, the package deactivates and erases itself. We will not speak of this again. The Kepler corridor remains open, and we'll begin formal diplomacy on terms we negotiate as equals. That's the whole of what we want. Return the children. Erase the leash. Talk like equals. 3 sentences, and none of them left room for a fourth. Sithrakva's carapace plates shifted along his jaw, the only motion in a body that had learned, across 3 centuries, to give away nothing. And if we refuse? Then you'll find out where we send your fleet, Chen said. I'd rather not show you. Showing you would mean I'd already lost the thing I actually came here for. The screens went dark at the same instant, all 43 at once, as if a single hand had reached across a light year and pulled a curtain closed. For a long moment, nobody in the Hall of Unbroken Victory spoke. It was Sithrakva who broke the silence, and when he did, his voice had dropped low enough that only the commanders nearest him could hear it. Find me a channel, he said. Any channel, find one that still works. It took his communications officer 40 minutes to find one. Every diplomatic relay the Dominion maintained toward human space had gone silent, not jammed, not destroyed, simply unresponsive, as though the humans had quietly closed every door except one. The one door still open was a civilian trade node, the kind merchants used to haggle over grain shipments and mineral rights, humming along on frequencies no one had thought worth defending. Sithrakva took the call standing, which he had not done for any transmission in 11 years. I am authorized to discuss your terms, he said, when Chen's face resolved on the small merchant-grade screen. It felt absurd, speaking through a channel built for selling wheat, and he suspected she knew that. He suspected she'd left it open on purpose. There's nothing to discuss, Chen said. The terms are the terms. Do you accept them or not? You could have shown restraint of a different kind, Sithrakva said. You could have sent ships, threats we understand, fleets we can measure. This, he stopped, searching for the first time in longer than he could remember for a word that fit. What are you? We're human beings, Chen said. Very young by your measure, very frightened if you'd asked us yesterday. But we love our children with a completeness that doesn't leave room for much else. That's not a weakness you can exploit. It's the whole of the weapon. Sithrakva said nothing. Behind him, through the small window of the merchant relay's camera, Chen could see 3 of his commanders standing very still, watching their leader receive something none of them had a category for. The 72 hours started when our first conversation ended, Chen said. You have 68 remaining. I'd use them efficiently. The channel didn't close this time. Sithrakva closed it himself, and for several seconds afterward he stood with his hand still resting on the console, looking at a screen that had gone back to selling grain futures to nobody. "Bring me the fleet manifest," he said finally. "All of it, every vessel that carries this package." The officer nearest him hesitated. "Commander, if we attempt to purge the navigation cores before the deadline." "I did not say purge it," Seathrakva said. "I said bring me the manifest. I want to know exactly how thoroughly they own us before I decide what to do about it." Nowhere in that sentence was there room for the word he was actually circling, the one his species didn't have good language for: afraid. Seathrakva did not sleep. 3 days later, his commanders were still arguing about the manifest when the answer came from a place none of them expected. It was the children. Not a vote, not a council decision handed down from the Hall of Unbroken Victory. A junior handler assigned to the holding block on Dominion Station, Cows, filed a report that made its way up the chain faster than any order could have traveled down it. The children weren't behaving the way conquered things were supposed to behave. They weren't broken. They organized. The oldest ones took shifts watching the youngest sleep. A boy no older than 9 had started teaching a 6-year-old her numbers in the dark, using nothing but his fingers and the cadence of a nursery rhyme, because it kept her from crying, and it kept him from thinking about home. Seathrakva read that report twice. He had conquered 11 species. He had never once read a report like it. "They are afraid," said the officer who delivered it, expecting the observation to land as reassurance. "No," Seathrakva said. "They are waiting. There's a difference, and I don't think we understood it until just now." He gave the order the same hour. "Return them, all of them, immediately." Somewhere between Dominion Station Cows and a wheat field in the Kepler corridor, a girl who had spent 3 years and 1 week learning to fold her fear into something small enough to carry finally let it go. The transport ships that carried the children home were not warships. Seathrakva had insisted on that much, over the objections of 2 commanders who wanted an armed escort as a show of remaining strength. He overruled them with 4 words. "They've seen enough weapons." Dr. Vasquez touched her tablet screen twice when the tracking data confirmed the ships had left Dominion space. She didn't say anything to the room. She didn't need to. Chen, watching the same feed from 3 seats away, finally let her hand fall from her collar for the first time in what felt like days. "They're actually doing it," Webb said, disbelief still thick in his voice, even with the proof glowing on the screen in front of him. "They were always going to," Chen said. "The question was never whether. It was how fast they'd understand that we meant it." Park looked up from her slate, and for once she wasn't tracking anyone's reaction but her own. "Admiral, there's something in the manifest data we intercepted, something that isn't in our threat model." Chen turned. "Go on." "The VTH Dominion has never, in 6,000 years of recorded history, reversed a conquest order once given. Not once. Not for tribute, not for treaty, not for anything." Park set the slate down slowly, like it had gotten heavier in her hands. "We didn't just win a hostage negotiation, Admiral. We made a 6,000-year-old empire do something it has never done before." The room went quiet, in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "Then let's hope," Chen said, "that we were worth doing it for." She allowed herself 30 seconds to feel that. Then she moved on, because the work wasn't finished, and work had always been the only thing Yuki Chen knew how to do with a feeling too large to hold. A pre-flight tech aboard the transport bound for Perseverance Colony spent the final hour of the journey checking a coolant gauge that hadn't needed checking in 6 years. It was the kind of small, useless task a person does with their hands when their mind can't be trusted alone. The Dominion escort peeled away at the edge of the Kepler corridor, exactly as agreed, and did not follow the transports the rest of the way in. Seathrakva had given that order personally, over a channel meant for selling grain, to a woman he had never met in person, and hoped never to meet in the way soldiers usually meet each other. Chen watched the approach vector update in real time from the Karen's war table. Webb stood at her shoulder. Park had stopped tracking anyone's face but the screens. Vasquez sat, finally, in the chair someone had brought her hours ago and that she'd been too tense to use until now. "There's something you should know," Vasquez said quietly, touching her tablet a second time. "About the package, about what we actually put in their cause." Chen glanced at her. "Tell me." "It's not gone," Vasquez said. "We told them it deactivates and erases itself. That part's true. But the deactivation isn't automatic. Someone has to trigger it. Someone on our end." Webb's jaw tightened. "You're telling me we still have the leash?" "I'm telling you," Vasquez said. "That trust isn't a thing you prove once. It's a thing you keep choosing not to break. Every single day nobody's watching to see if you will." Chen said nothing for a long moment. Then she reached out, and for the first time since the transmission had first arrived under Lunar Array, touched a command key herself instead of ordering someone else to. The package deactivated, not on a countdown, not waiting for the ships to land. Now, with the children still in transit, before there was any proof at all that the Dominion had kept its word. "Admiral," Webb said carefully, "they haven't landed yet. We don't know." "We know," Chen said. "We decided to know. That's the whole of what makes this different from what they'd have done in our place." Behind her, unnoticed, Dr. Vasquez wrote one line into a log that would not be declassified for another 40 years. "Trust deployed before verification. First recorded instance in the Whisper Project's operational history." The wheat field came up on the long-range camera, first as a smear of gold, then as a shape, then as a place with a name that 312 families had said to each other like a prayer for 3 years and 1 week. The signal was clean this time. No screaming. No voice that didn't belong to any human throat. Just static and wind and the low mechanical whine of transport engines cutting to idle. The lead ship's ramp came down first, and it stopped at a 40-degree angle, hydraulics ticking as they cooled in air that smelled, for the first time in 3 years, of soil that belonged to nobody but the people standing in it. Chen touched her collar once. Then she stopped and let her hand fall and simply watched. The ramp finished its descent, and the first child down was the girl who had spent 3 years teaching numbers in the dark. She did not run. She walked, slow and careful, the way you walk when you're not sure the ground will hold. Then a woman broke from the crowd along the tree line, her mother, the same woman who had planted the wheat in this field the spring before the taking, and the girl's walk became a run, became nothing that had a name at all. The sound that went up from the tree line was not a cheer. It was not translatable into any single word. It was 312 small reunions happening in the same golden light, all at once, none of them waiting for the others to finish. Chen watched it on the feed and said nothing for a long time. No shouting from the command deck. No countdown reaching 0. Just whined through wheat, and a woman 200 miles away who had spent 11 years building toward a moment she was not standing inside. Vasquez touched her tablet a third time, and this time she didn't look down at it at all. "They're all accounted for," she said. 312. Everyone." "I know," Chen said. "How?" "Because I decided to know." Chen's hand found her collar, touched it once, and this time did not let go right away. "The same way I decided the package would deactivate before they landed. Some things you don't wait to verify. You choose them, and then you live inside the choice." Webb, who had spent the entire crisis with his jaw set like a man expecting the worst, finally let his shoulders drop. "So that's it. It's over." "No," Chen said. "It started." She watched the girl on the screen bury her face in her mother's shoulder, watched the boy who taught her numbers stand very still in another set of arms, not crying, just breathing like a person remembering how. "We're just getting started." She said it barely above a whisper, the way she'd said it once already in a moment nobody else had been close enough to hear. This time Vasquez heard it, and understood, finally, exactly what those 5 words had always meant. Not a threat. A promise made to 312 children who hadn't been able to hear it the first time. 3 months later, A delegation from the KTH consortium arrived at the edge of human space, requesting, with unusual formality, to speak with whoever had built the thing that made the VTH Dominion blink. They sat across from the Secretary General in a room with real windows this time. No denial required. No 17 treaties standing between the conversation and the truth of it. You could have sent their entire fleet into a star, the lead delegate said. You had the access. You proved it. Why did you stop at asking for children back? Because that's what we wanted, the Secretary General said. Not their fleet, not their systems, not their surrender. We wanted our children home, and the moment you use a thing like that for anything more than what you need it for, you've become the kind of empire that takes children in the first place. The delegate studied him for a long moment, the way a species that measured power in conquest studies, a species that had just demonstrated it could conquer and chosen instead to simply ask. No warning, Chen said later, when Vasquez relayed the exchange to her. No armies, no declaration of dominance, she paused. Just a door we could have walked through and didn't. Seathrakva never sent his fleet manifest data to another power again. He withdrew Dominion forces from 2 contested worlds within the year, not as tribute, but because a commander who had spent 3 centuries believing conquest was inevitable had finally met a species that made restraint look like the more dangerous option. Trade opened along the Kepler corridor. The Hall of Unbroken Victory got a new name that no one translated for human ears, though Vasquez suspected, from the tone alone, that it meant something closer to the room where we learned. The girl who had taught numbers in the dark grew up. Decades later, a journalist asked her, on a recorded interview that would outlive everyone in this story, what those 3 years had taught her. We don't get angry, she said, an adult now, steady in a way that had nothing performative in it. We get to work, and we don't stop until the work is done. She was quiet a moment, the same quiet her mother remembered from the wheat field. That's what she was doing the whole time we were gone, getting to work. I didn't understand that until I was old enough to do the same thing myself. She had become, by then, one of 40 diplomats born from that single stolen year. Women and men who had learned as children exactly what patience could survive, and had built careers making sure it never had to survive that again. Chen retired 11 years after the reunion, the same number of years she'd spent building the thing that ended it. She did not attend her own retirement ceremony. She was on Perseverance Colony that week instead, for reasons she never fully explained to anyone who asked. She walked the wheat field alone in the early evening, the light gone gold the way it always did at that hour, and stopped at a house with a porch and a door that had been rebuilt twice since the taking. A woman stepped out to meet her, the girl's mother, older now, her hands roughened by seasons of the same wheat that had grown back every year since. On the porch rail sat a chipped ceramic mug, the same one, kept the same way, for longer than anyone but the 2 of them would ever understand the reason for. Still there, Chen said. She wouldn't let me throw it out, the woman said. Said it was waiting for something. Chen touched her collar once, and did not explain what the gesture meant, because there was no one left to explain it to who didn't already know. Somewhere in the wheat fields, a hand reached for a cup that had been waiting 3 years. The coffee inside it, kept warm on a small heating plate no one had ever mentioned aloud, was still warm. No declaration followed it. No armies came after it. No mercy was needed because none had ever been withheld. Do not take what humans love. Because humanity does not send armies. Humanity sends something worse. The wheat kept growing. The porch light came on as the sun went down, and in a field that had once held 312 small shadows behind a door that would not open, nothing moved at all except the wind.